Hello, all my lovelies. Welcome to my new channel, Fergus and Friends Read. So, the basic premise, I guess you could say, of this channel is that I want to read out works of fiction, like whether it be fan fiction, just original stories, good or bad. I just want to be able to read these out, give my thoughts and opinions on them. And yeah, this was kind of inspired by, well, it was mostly inspired by the YouTube channel, the Steel Donut Collective. I'll link them down below. And yeah, so my first fanfiction I'm going to be reading is Templeschool, which is a Steven Universe fanfiction by Stargazer19 on Archive of Our Own. And it's basically inspired by another person's AU. You can see right here, Flynnaw00, and they created this kind of AU where during the time of Steven Universe Future, Steven ends up going back in time, and for some reason he's stuck there with his younger self and the younger crystal gems. And basically it just goes through how he reacts, how others react to him. And yeah, so this is obviously going to have spoilers for Steven Universe Future. And well, Steven Universe in general, if you don't know Steven Universe or you haven't watched Steven Universe Future yet, I really recommend that you do. This particular fanfiction is set after Little Graduation but before Prickly Pear. And yeah, so let's get on with it. Chapter 1, The Big Idea. Tui sighed into Stephen's pillow for the 5th time that hour. His hands were dangling off the foot of Stephen's bed, as he barely paid attention to his character on the TV screen. Stephen didn't seem to notice Tui's lack of effort in the fighting game they were playing, as his sigh went unnoticed. Don't misunderstand. He loves hanging out with Stephen, but the two have been playing Lonely Blade for hours now, and he was bored. The gems were off doing stars knows what. Originally, Tui planned on going to the library to research anything gem-related in hopes of finding another way to get home, but Stephen had asked if he wanted to hang out for the day. One look at those puppy eyes the boy made, and Tui knew he couldn't say no. Woohoo! Stephen flopped back upward on the bed, the controller raised in the air in victory. Tui dropped his controller to the ground and mustered the strength to push himself up from where he had been laying on Stephen's bed. Stephen, can we do something else now? I don't think my eyes can take looking at the screen any longer. He rubbed his eyes with his palms. How on earth had he been able to stand that for hours as a kid? Is it weird that he feels so old now? Stephen sits up, his face slightly frowning as he sets his controller down on the bed. Sorry, I didn't realize we'd been playing so long. Maybe we can make lunch and have a picnic? Or go to Fryman's and eat fry bits? Stars lit up in his eyes, and he lunged forward, grabbing Tui's face in his hands. I know! Let's go to Fish Stew Pizza! I have enough VI pizza cards for them to get us both free pizzas. Tui smiled and rolled his eyes as he gently pulled Stephen's hands away from his face. All right, let's go then. He headed downstairs to put his jacket on while Stephen gathered the cards from his bedside drawer. Once the two were ready, they began their trek into town. Just one thing I want to mention with this fanfiction, this kind of AU that was created, older Stephen is referred to as Tui, and I just like that. Just in case any of you guys were getting confused. It didn't take long for them to reach Fish Stew Pizza. The line wasn't long, but Tui did not want to wait in line to talk to Kiki. He decided to grab a table while Stephen ordered for them. It was pretty awkward for him to talk to the residents of Beach City. People would become confused and awkward every time Tui was introduced as Stephen's older brother, who was visiting from Ocean Town. It was easier not to interact with them as often instead. Stephen finally made his way to their table and sat down. What should we do after we're done eating? We could go to the arcade or the movie theater? Tui hummed in contemplation at Stephen's question. He didn't really want to go to the arcade or the theater. Both would probably involve him staring at the screen again. I just wish there was something I could do every day that's more long-term. I'm getting sick of doing nothing but playing games and TV in my spare time. Stephen frowned slightly at Tui's lack of response. I could always text Connie and see if she wants to hang out with us at Funland. Stephen went to pull out his phone, but Tui shook his head before he could continue. Connie has that big test tomorrow, remember? Maybe when she's done with school for the week. Just a slight critique. Like, this story is really good. I love it. But whenever a new person starts speaking, you should make another paragraph for that. But besides that, this is all really good and all the other grammar is going really well. Stephen sighed and propped his head on his hand. Oh yeah, I forgot. He closed his eyes for a second before chuckling. Do you remember when we tried to make our own school? Pearl helped us gather all the stuff Connie said schools have, and we met Lapis. His smile turned sad. I wonder how she's doing trapped under the ocean. Tui sighed as he remembered how much it hurt knowing Lapis was stuck under the ocean as malachite. He needed to find some way to cheer Stephen up, but how to do it without more electronics? That's when it hit him. A grin formed on his face, and he tried not to act nonchalant. You know, I used to be a teacher. That was all he had to say for Stephen to smile at him with stars in his eyes. You were a teacher? What did you teach? Did your students like you? Who did you teach? At the moment, Kiki came out with their order. Hey, Stephen. Hey, Tui. Here's your order. 1 pepperoni, 1 cheese pizza. She set the pizzas down in front of them. Anything else I can get you two? Tui and Stephen thanked her as they shook their heads. Kiki smiled and went back to work. Okay, Stephen. I can't say too much, but I can tell you that the gems and I were able to reverse corruption eventually. Afterwards, the gems needed to learn how to live on Earth, so I started a school for them. Stephen couldn't contain his excitement. You mean we'll be able to save everyone in the future? That's awesome! Why'd you stop? Tui flinched at the question. He looked down at his plate to avoid the confusion, and now, concerned look on Stephen's face at his response. I realized it I just didn't like graduation. Tui tried to hide his discomfort, but Stephen could tell something was bothering him. Words. Anyways, I just brought that up because I could always homeschool you. You know, if you want me to. Stephen's frown flipped like a switch. He immediately stood on his chair and leaned over the table in awe. You want to homeschool me? That would be awesome! He flopped back into his chair and stuffed a slice of pizza into his mouth. We could always find the stuff again for a classroom. You'll be Professor Universe. Tui choked on his pizza. Professor Universe? Stephen, professors are people who teach at colleges. You don't have to call me anything different. He couldn't keep the big grin off his face, though. His younger self was so adorable at times. If he were to teach, though, he would need to go to the library and get some books. He'd also need to test Stephen to see what he already knows. Tell you what, after we finish eating, let's go to the library. I need to get some books for you, and then we can go home and make sure we have everything we need for class. Then, if we still have time, we can go to the arcade or the theater. Sound good? Stephen nodded and rushed to finish his pizza. He couldn't wait to get started. I don't know what I would do if I met my younger self. Especially depending on what time. Middle school me was... Elementary school me was kind of cute, but also very weird. I'm just a weird person in general. Anyway. Chapter 2. Late night studying and nightmares. The only noise that could be heard in the temple was the soft snores of Stephen and the crinkle of paper as Tui turned the page in the book he was reading. He had been reading the book for hours, a guide to homeschooling, ever since Stephen went to bed. The kid was so tired after all the excitement and had probably passed out on the couch when he got home. Tui snorted at the thought of the moment. He'd had to carry his younger self to bed, tucking him in like he remembered Garnet doing for him. The book was a useful reference, at least. Tui already knew he'd have to test Stephen to see where he was academically, but the book came with a good comprehensive test. Tui had printed out a copy of each test while they were at the library. The stack of papers sat neatly stapled to him. Next to him. I can't read. The focus was now on catching himself up with the subjects he would have to teach Stephen and coming up with a schedule. Tui bit the end of his pencil he was writing with as he looked at the subjects he'd had to teach. Biology, English, history, math, and physical education. He could do all 5 subjects for an hour like traditional school, but what if the gems needed them on a mission? Besides, wouldn't that take 5 hours, not including lunch? Maybe it'd be better to make it 4 hours instead. 2 subjects a day for 2 hours each. He'd just alternate the other 2 subjects and count PE as gem missions or training. He'd just finished writing down more notes about the type of workbook/textbooks he could use when he heard rustling upstairs. Tui rubbed his eyes with his hands before turning in his chair to look behind him. Stephen was sitting up in his bed, eyes wide as he stared forward. He lightly smacked his face a couple of times with his hands before he noticed the light shining dimly in the kitchen. Tui, are you still up? He blinked a couple of times before fully focusing on his older self. Tui smiled softly at him and gave a little wave. Yeah, still awake. What woke you up? Stephen trudged down the stairs, making his way over to stand in front of Tui. I had a nightmare about Malachite. Tui frowned at him. It was pretty traumatic, and no one ever really talked to him about it afterward. He sighed, gesturing to the chair next to him. Do you want to talk about it? Stephen shook his head. He paused for a moment, then climbed into the seat next to Tui. Not right now. It's really late, Tui. Are you going to go to bed soon? The older boy hummed as he turned on his phone. 1:34 a.m. Whoa, it is really late. I'll head to bed in a minute. I want to finish this section first. He went back to writing notes on the book again as Stephen laid his head down on the table. The two sat in silence for several minutes. Stephen was still feeling down. He really wanted some company, but he didn't want to bother Tui. He opened his mouth a couple of times to say something, but he couldn't bring himself to say anything. Stephen bit his lip as he mustered the courage to scooch his chair a little closer to Tui. If he heard the noise or noticed the movement, Tui didn't show it. Stephen looked up at him again before scooching even closer. He leaned over until he was resting against Tui's side. The older boy looked at him for a second in surprise, but his expression quickly turned into a fond smile. He moved his arm around Stephen so he could hold him and brushed his fingers softly through the kid's hair as he continued reading. It didn't take long for Stephen to fall back asleep. Once Tui finished the chapter he was on, he gathered his notes into a pile, closed the book, and carefully picked up the slumbering child. He tucked Stephen into bed again, then gathered some blankets to sleep on the couch. He wanted to be nearby in case Stephen woke up again. I can't read words. I'm trying. Need to get more sleep. Chapter 3. Technically the first day. Time to get up! It's the first day of school! Stephen leaped onto Tui, who was soundly asleep on the couch. Oof! Even though Tui was used to taking harder hits from gems, he still curled up in shock and pain from Stephen landing on his stomach. Ugh, Stephen, get off! He pushed the boy off of him so he could curl up on his side. Stephen paid no notice to Tui's plight. I set up the classroom while you were sleeping. You went to bed late last night, so I figured I'd wait until I was done to wake you up. Now come on, it's time for school! As he was running around the room, cheering, the temple door opened up. Pearl stepped daintily out of her room, staring in confusion at the ruckus. Why are you running around the room, Stephen? And where's Tui? She startled at the pained groan that greeted her from the couch. Goodness, Tui, are you all right? What's gotten into you two this morning? She walked over to the couch and helped Stephen sit No. She walked over to the couch and helped Tui sit up, letting him lean into her hands. Stephen ran over to her, ecstatically jumping up and down. Tui's going to start homeschooling me today. Isn't that great, Pearl? Pearl stiffened, letting go of Tui in the process. Tui's eyes widened right as she let go. He went crashing to the ground. Homeschooling? You're not teaching Stephen about homeworld, are you? How could you? Don't you know how dangerous that place is? How do you even know about it? Pearl rounded on him. Tui mumbled something under his breath as he propped himself up against the floor. You know, Pearl, maybe you should stop making assumptions about things you don't know. Homeschooling is a human thing, not a gem thing. Pearl's face flushed in anger. Don't talk to me like that, young man. You may be Stephen from the future, but I know what's best for my Stephen. I don't want you talking about any of that with him. Do you understand me? Tui took a deep breath to calm himself down. He flashed her an irritated glare as he stood up and faced her. Pearl, I get why you're concerned, but you shouldn't yell at me when you're the one in the wrong. Homeschool is when kids are taught subjects like math and science from home instead of from an educational institution run by the county. We both have a lot of free time right now, so I thought having lessons with Stephen would be a good idea. He wiped the look of irritation off his face while spinning on his heel to face Stephen. Come on, Stephen, I'll make us breakfast. Tui ushered Stephen away from Pearl, not giving her a chance to respond, and started looking through the cupboards. Pancakes okay? Stephen turned to look at Pearl. Her face was scrunched up in annoyance, and she walked away in a huff. She grumbled something about Peridot before the front door slammed shut behind her. He turned back to Tui, who was rummaging through the fridge for more ingredients. Okay, pancakes sound good. Stephen pulled out a flat pan, a bowl, and a whisk for Tui, while Tui grabbed the measuring cups. How good are you with fractions? Tui questioned. He noticed that cooking would probably be a good application of fractions in real life. I'm okay with fractions. I know the basics, but that's about it. Tui hummed thoughtfully. Remind me to go over fractions more often with you when we cook, or the next time we're at Fish Stew Pizza. Anyway, let me tell you what I have planned for today. Pancake flour, milk, and 2 eggs went into the bowl. I printed out that comprehensive test for you while we were at the library. I'm going to have you take one for different subjects to see what level you're at. Stephen melted some butter in the pan, and Tui poured some batter into it. Every time you finish a test, we'll take a break. I want you to finish all the tests today so you can actually start lessons tomorrow. Tui stacked some pancakes onto a plate and set it down on the bar counter. Stephen dug into his pancakes with gusto. Breakfast was a little awkward. Tui frowned his brows at his now empty plate. He didn't mean to snap at Pearl, but it was hard when the gems were still treating him like a stranger. It's not like he wasn't weirded out as well. He wanted to forget their argument ever happened. He picked up both plates and went over to the sink. Okay, Stephen, I'll wash up everything from breakfast. He looked over at the classroom that Stephen had set up. There was a desk and a chalkboard set up by the couch. How did he not notice that when he woke up? There was also a stack of books by the chalkboard, and multiple pencils, markers, and notebooks surrounded the desk. Do we need all this? I was just going to have you work on the couch. Stephen smiled, all the tension leaving his body. Absolutely! This is our first day! Hold on. He ran up and down the stairs as fast as he could. I still got you this! The light shined off the black rectangular glasses that Stephen held in the air. Lots of teachers wear glasses on TV, so I got you these glasses and popped the lenses out. Tui chuckled. Okay, fine. I'll wear them just for today, okay? He set the last clean dish in the dish rack and put the glasses on. Next, he grabbed the packets from the counter, ushering Stephen to sit in his desk. I thought we'd start out with the easiest one first. I don't think you'll struggle too much with English since you read a lot with Connie. After, we'll test math, history, and end the test with science. I want you to do your best and don't worry if you can't answer a question. This test is to figure out what you already know, not what you should know, okay? Stephen nodded with determination. I'm ready for this. He was not ready for this. After each test was completed, Tui could see confusion and stress marring his expression. Tui was reading the completed packets on the couch, still wearing the glasses, while Stephen marked his answer for the last question. The second it was filled in, Stephen dropped his head on the desk. Done. Finally. Tui held back a laugh. All right, Stephen, I need to finish looking over these for tomorrow. Why don't you go rest or see if the gems want a break from their search? That made Stephen look up in excitement. Yeah, that's a great idea. He ran off towards the temple doors. Tui wrote more notes down on his notebook. Stephen had done pretty well in the English test. His reading ability scored a bit higher than his actual grade level. His writing definitely needed work, though. He had done all right in math. Arithmetic was fine, multiplication was fine. Any word problem involving friends or sharing the kid had aced. The issue seemed to be symbols. He had no idea how to work with any of the symbols used in algebra. He also struggled with trigonometry. Same, honestly. I suck at math. I suck really bad at math. He sighed as he looked over Stephen's history packet. The kid knew a lot about gem history, but human history? That was something they would need to work on. He knew about Beach City's history, but barely any of the world history or U.S. history. I'm definitely looking up how far the Smithsonians are from here. That'll both be a fun field trip and a good learning experience for history and science. The sound of the temple door made Tui look up from his work. Amethyst stepped out of the temple, flashing a grin at Stephen as they started walking towards the door. Amethyst and I are going to hang out at the boardwalk. Do you want us to bring you home anything? Tui shook his head. Thanks for asking, but I'm fine. Have fun. He grabbed Stephen's science packet and started looking over the answers. He heard the door thud close. Okay, Tui, all I have left is this packet, then I can get started researching everything I need to know for tomorrow's lessons, he muttered to himself. This was another subject that Stephen struggled with. He knew the basics about animals, plants, and the weather, but that was it. Okay, the museum is the first field trip I'll take him on once I get permission from Dad to borrow the van for the day. Maybe I'll schedule that in 2 weeks so I can use it to test him on things he's already learned. He gathered the packets up and started organizing his lesson plans for the next day. That was just getting harder to read. I am not good at, I can read pretty well, but translating it out into my voice is kind of more on the harder side. Well, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Next time I read this should have another person, because it's supposed to be Fergus and Friends read. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and make sure if you did like it, I'm a mess. If you did like this video, make sure to hit the like button, and if you want to see more, click subscribe. And I will also link this fanfic down in the description and a few other things. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day or night. Fergus out.